At the end of a hard week, it's great to sit down and take some time off and watch some football. Game-winning touchdowns on 2-minute drives, running backs racing down the sidelines with no one to stop them. There's nothing else like the NFL, and there's no better way to make the games even more exciting than to bet on them. So do the smart thing and go to mybookie.ag. No one gives you more ways to win than they do. MyBookie's got the fastest payouts and better lines than any other sportsbook. Don't forget, where you're betting is just as important as who you're betting on, and mybookie.ag is the best in the business. Do the smart thing. If you're going to bet this football season, bet with MyBookie. If you're the kind of guy that likes to bet a little and win a lot, try a parlay. If all your picks come through, you'll multiply your winnings. And no matter how you bet, the NFL season is the best time of year. Join now and MyBookie will double your first deposit. Use promo code Detroit100 to activate the offer. That's promo code DETROIT100. Visit mybookie.ag today. You play, you win, you get paid.
Fellas, I want to tell you about a product that can improve your performance in the bedroom. And what better way to improve the quality of your life than to please the woman of your dreams? Blue Chew brings you the first chewable with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know they work. Blue Chew is the fast and easy solution for any man looking to enhance their performance and step up their game. You don't have to be one of those guys that finishes quickly, or you don't have to be one of those guys that, at the end of the day, regrets not having a great sex life. Blue Chew is prescribed online and shipped straight to your door in a discreet package, so no in-person doctor's visit, no waiting in the pharmacy, and best of all, no more awkwardness. They're made in the USA, and since Blue Chew prepares and ships direct, they're cheaper than a pharmacy. Right now, we've got a special deal for our listeners. Visit BlueChew.com and get your first shipment free when you use our special promo code DETROIT. All you got to do is pay the $5 shipping and handling fee. Again, that's BlueChew.com, promo code Detroit to try it free. Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice, and we thank them for sponsoring the podcast.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
You guys keep up the good work, man. Podcasts are the way of the future.
Welcome in, everybody, to the latest edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
We have undefeated Detroit Lions. What? God, how awful does that tie look right now? You could be at the top of the NFC North. Instead, you're somewhere in the middle because you let one get away in Arizona. What a bunch of crap that is. But you got a big win against, what is it, the Los Angeles, not the San Diego, the Los Angeles Superchargers. I don't think either one of us thought this was happening.
Well, both squads were trying to give the game away to each other.
Yes, they were.
I remember you told me last year, you're like, okay, sitting in the press box is a little tough. You know, it's a different experience. But when the game is tight and both teams are making mistakes, both squads couldn't kick a field goal, you recognize like an NFL franchise went into a game without a field goal kicker. They said, okay, we got a punter. He can kick it. Let's just see if he can make it. And he's missing kicks left and right. Prater's missing kicks left and right. And you're like, oh, my God, these two teams, they just don't want to win the football game. And finally, the Lions made the last play. But at bottom line, both squads didn't play that well. And you recognize that the Detroit Lions got a long way to go, and I do see them getting better. But hey, it's nice to talk about a victory. They won the game. They made the play. So whether you don't want to give them credit or not, they sit today at 1 win, 0 losses, and 1 tie. Is that tie going to, end up being large for the Lions? Yeah, probably. It's probably going to cost them down the road. But right now, things are looking good. You can improve and still get wins. A 13-10 victory. And I want to ask you this, start with this. Do you like watching football like that? If the Lions are going to build a defense and they start winning games 17-14 and they're all down to the wire and it's going to require a defensive effort or a stop or two to win the game, you down with that?
I don't know if my heart can take it, but I don't mind. I mean, a win's a win, right? You're going to take them any way you can get them. You go back, 2 weeks? You're looking at that Arizona game. If they could have had a stop, you'd have took that and took the W and kept on moving. So I think for as long as we've done this podcast, both of us have just wanted one thing.
Win!
And that's victories, right? So we just want wins. And I don't necessarily care how they come. The issue is, are my nerves and is my heart conditioned good enough to take all that? I mean, Darius Slade made a huge play in the end zone. He looked like dog crap most of that game. Keenan Allen was eating him alive, but he made a huge play when you needed it. And I jumped out of my seat. I was pumped. I was like, they did this. Like, they actually did this. I don't think either one of us thought that they were going to be able to do this. Matt Stafford drives them down the field, scores a touchdown, and then you're looking at the clock and you're like, oh, dude, you gave Phillip Rivers way too much time. And then Phillip Rivers gets them moving, and the Chargers kind of start shooting themselves in the foot as they're approaching the red zone. And then next thing you know, he throws one up, and thank goodness Slay came down with it. You know what I'm saying? It was a massive play. It was a way to rebound and kind of rehab yourself after looking like dog meat most of this game. But I don't know. I'm almost positive you feel the same way I feel. You're going to take a W anywhere you can get it. The one thing I think you can say about this team, though, they looked much better that second half. I mean, go back a couple years. The one thing we complained about is this team couldn't make second half adjustments. Now, this team came out in the second half and made some adjustments. Yeah, the Chargers shot themselves in the foot a couple times, missed a couple field goals, and that really allowed Detroit to capitalize and get a victory. But this coaching staff made adjustments and was able to help get this team to win. And when we were picking our three players or our three positional groups that had to be big last week, coaches were one of mine. And I don't think the coaches let them down in this game, which was huge, especially coming off of last week or 2 weeks ago, where I feel like the coaches let them down playing against Arizona.
I think a lot of people were impressed that when the Lions got the ball back after the interception, yeah, it was run, but on that third down play call, they were aggressive, and they threw the ball to the tight end to earn the first down, to kill the clock, to give the Chargers no chance to come back. So, by and large, there were a lot of good things. It's nice to see Matthew Stafford throw the ball to Kenny Galladay, who is emerging to be a stud. And if that connection can emerge, if Galladay can continue to display his athleticism, it's just going to be a great sign for the Lions. But are you concerned at all regarding the defense in that Phillip Rivers was able to find his receiver? Austin Eckler is legit. He's an OG. He was able to run the football. I really liked Austin Eckler and what he brought to the table. I felt like, early on, the Chargers just ate up the time of possession. They had the football, but they weren't able to score. So that's a good thing in that the Lions they did not buckle. They were able to limit, the Chargers to field goal attempts, which they struggled in at times. So the defense was concerning a little bit in that what's the biggest thing that we all thought was going to be the strength of the team? It was going to be the defensive line. It was going to be like, okay, Phillip Rivers, you're in the crosshairs. You're going to be running all over the place. It didn't happen. There was not a lot of pressure and push from that defensive line, and people are starting to notice, Trey Flowers, you took a bunch of money. Where are you? Snacks Harrison, you got your deal. Where are you? The defensive line, I think, is a unit that's in my doghouse at this point.
I would agree with you. This defensive line was supposed to be what this defense was built around. They've done a whole lot of nothing in the last 2 weeks. So going to Philadelphia this week, they have a chance to maybe redeem themselves. But, yeah, they've done absolutely nothing. I mean, where's the pressure on the quarterback? Where are the sacks coming from? Why can't you stop the running backs? You brought up Snacks Harrison, and Snacks got this monster deal, and he missed most of OTAs and parts of training camp sitting out trying to get this big deal. He gets his deal, and now he's playing like he's fat and sassy and hasn't done anything. And hey, I give him credit. He took a lot of the blame in that Arizona game. All right. All that being said, I need you to come out and I need you to do something against San Diego or against LA. And you really didn't do it. Same thing with Trey Flowers. Trey Flowers got a massive deal. Where's he been? Who are the people? Who are the defensive ends or the defensive linemen that are bottling up running backs and knocking quarterbacks down while they're holding the ball? I haven't seen them yet. I don't know where they're at. That is frustrating. All that being said, if the defensive line isn't on their game, that puts that much more pressure on that secondary, and it puts that much more pressure on that linebacking core, which we've talked about that linebacking core for ever and a day now. It's not the best. It's not the strength of this team. It's serviceable, I think, is the best word to describe the linebackers. The secondary was getting picked apart by Phillip Rivers, and that's because there's not enough pressure. So, yeah, in my doghouse is the defensive line. They've got to figure it out. They've got to man up, and hopefully we get to see some of that this week against the Eagles.
Another unit that's in my doghouse is special teams. I mean, I don't know how John Bonamego has a job at this point in time. I mean, what is this, some kind of legacy deal where you can just show up to work and whatever happens?
He was brutal at Central. He's brutal here. I have no idea how this man has a job.
Yeah, man, it's brutal. I mean, you're looking at it, you're like, the kicking game is supposed to go forward. The kicking game is not supposed to result in, penalties. It's not supposed to result in backwards plays. Jamal Agnew gets benched, and Matt Patricia calls it an in-game decision. You're like, yeah, if Danny Amendola's got to do the job, whatever you got to do in the kick return game. Matt Prater didn't perform well. There were times,
is it surprising how Agnew has taken a step backwards?
I'm quite shocked.
Do you remember, what was it, a year ago, 2 years ago? Agnew was a guy where, like, oh my God, anytime this guy can touch the ball, he has the chance or the possibility to take it to the house. And now you don't want him touching the ball at all.
Many people don't want him on the team.
I don't know if I'd go that far. It's worrisome. I think he's got to figure some things out. The special teams doesn't look very special unless your definition of special is wear a helmet with a drill guard. If that's the deal, then okay, cool. But I'm not buying into this right now. They don't look good. John Bonamago's, like I said, he was brutal at Central. Not sure why he's here coaching. I don't even understand how he got a job with a professional team when he was an awful coach in the college ranks, especially at a MAC school. So I don't get it at all.
So when the matchup was released and then you realize, Taylor Decker's not going to be part of the contest, we're all like, oh boy, Matthew Stafford's going to have a long afternoon.
Dude, I thought he was going to be covered in green.
Right. And what happened? I think the offensive line, they took it upon themselves. They took it as a challenge. 0 sacks. Tyrell Crosby performed well. He did his job. The offensive line really worked together. I mean, they called screens. They rolled the pocket out. So Darrell Bevell did a great job scheming for the Los Angeles Chargers. And you recognize, wow, the O-line gave up 0 sacks. It's nice to see. But at the same time, the run game is still not where it needs to be. Kerryon Johnson's great in the screen game, but in terms of rushes, they got to do a lot better job in the run game if that's going to be a point of emphasis, especially now that you've released C.J. Anderson.
Yeah, were you surprised by them releasing C.J. Anderson?
No, when you make the SI doghouse, it's a big-time problem. You don't just end up in the Sports Illustrated Detroit Sports Podcast doghouse and end up just skating free. People notice. So I had put in 2 articles, 2 separate pieces, that I needed to see C.J. Anderson perform, and then he didn't. I think he barely had 20 yards in 2 games, and it's not well. He hasn't performed. I think I'm mistaken. I think he got somewhere in the neighborhood of like 43 yards total this year rushing, and then he got demoted to 3rd string, and obviously when that happens, he's not going to be happy. So he marched right in the office and was like, I'm no 3rd stringer, and Bob Quinn's like, okay. And the crazy part about that was they did him dirty. They released him after he's talking to these youth and doing a talk downtown, and it's like, oh man, the nature of the NFL. Tuesday's an off day. You're going down, doing some nice work, talking about charity and all that good stuff, and then you get a phone call and you're gone. Look, it's the NFL. I'm kind of happy they did it. I mean, he wasn't productive. Ty Johnson emerged. He's a guy with speed. The issue that you see now is that you don't really have a guy that when it's 3rd and 1, you can just hand the ball off to, and you can just be confident that he's going to lunge forward with his size to get that first down. So that's a problem. But, I mean, C.J. Anderson, was a guy that was supposed to be that guy, but I just think they realized, we tried to, see what he had. There was not a lot there in terms of what C.J. Anderson brought to the table.
Yeah, I was a little bit shocked just because you got to remember what this guy did last year, right? And then he fights his way onto the team. He's the 2nd string running back. And then next thing you know, he's getting released, and they're bringing in a guy who essentially was a 3rd and 4th stringer in New York. He ended up getting a chance to get a little bit of a look and a little bit of a run when everybody in front of him went down. But man, I don't understand why it didn't work for CJ Anderson. So maybe I think we have to start taking a closer look at Bevel and his run game, because like you said, there's not been a 100-yard rusher yet. The running backs have looked, I don't want to say out of sorts. Like you said, the screen game is working, but the run game looks questionable at best. And that might flare up and might hurt this team later on in the season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You would think that a guy like C.J. Anderson would really take advantage of the opportunity, but when his number was called, it just seemed like it was just, okay, give him the ball and he'd go down. But Ty Johnson emerged. You got to give him the ball. I think Johnson & Johnson can be a legit threat if you give him some time to gel.
Yeah, no, I like Ty Johnson. I watched him play, I think it was the Maryland-Ohio State game last year, and I was really, really impressed with him. I thought he was a very good running back. When the draft rolled around, he wasn't the guy I would have took. And then you seen him work his way through camp. You're like, okay, cool. I can see why they were so high on him. I see why they took him. It started to make sense. And then he gets into live action, and you're like, all right, I feel pretty comfortable and I feel pretty confident with him having the ball. The thing is, I just want more at this point. I need to see more. And I'm just kind of waiting for everything to start to click. At times the pass game looks good. Other times it looks bad. At times the run game looks good. At times it looks bad. I just needed all this kind of fall into place here and start to be productive and work. I'd like the run game to be lethal and threatening, and I'd love for Matt Stafford to basically have daggers and just throw daggers until he mutilates defenses. So I just need to see all this come together. I understand it's a new offense. I understand that this is their first time working together, and I understand that there's some growing pains. But we're heading into the third game now. You got to start to see a few things accelerate a little bit. You need to see a few things take leaps forward, and whether that be with the offensive line blocking better, whether that be with the running backs picking up more yards or looking a little bit more threatening, or Matt Stafford being able to air the ball out a little bit and hit some big chunk plays downfield. You need things to start to come together and come alive. And if you're going to do it, this week is the prime week for it to happen.
No doubt. With the Eagles being injured, they had to cancel practice because of all the injuries. I think there's an opportunity for the Lions to leave Philadelphia with the victory. But, yeah, it's going to come down to, can you execute those key plays? And will Darrell Bevell and that offense maintain that aggressiveness? So you and I, when we watch the Lions offense, we're like, okay, please, can you just do some things? I mean, we are subjected to, on Saturday, watching brutal offense, and we'll talk about that in the second half of the podcast. You're not going to want to miss what I thought about the Michigan State game. I was inebriated to the point of like, okay, it's still not tolerable. I still was pissed watching the Michigan State-Arizona State contest. That was a disgrace. So we're watching poor offense in college football. Now we got to watch the Lions. So we're like, okay, feel free, throw the ball all over the place. We don't care. Well, then what happens? Stafford throws 2 interceptions. And you're like, oh, that's why they don't do it. But he was able to connect on a 31-yard touchdown. There were some plays to be had, but I go, oh, okay, you know what? I just can't win. I'm begging the offense to throw the ball deep, just air it out. You try your best to make big plays, but at the same time you realize, okay, when you start to air it out, Stafford might be prone to a couple more interceptions. But, you look at it and you say, okay, if you throw it 40 yards, it's a decent punt. But were you concerned at all when you saw Stafford and those 2 interceptions that he had versus the Chargers?
I thought they were bad decisions, and that was my big concern. I didn't understand why you're trying to force the ball, and that's an issue. If you have an open wide receiver, bad play, something crazy happens, or the defender makes a big time move. But when you're trying to force the ball, or it just seems like you misread the coverage, yeah, a little bit of a problem there. The thing is, Stafford's a gamer, right? As much as I might bash the guy and as much as me and him might not see eye to eye, he's a gamer. And when it comes time for crunch time, he has a very short memory, and he's able to take advantage of defenses if they give him something. The Chargers gave him something, and he came up big, came up huge in the fourth quarter. I loved it. I had a weird moment today. I just started work this past week, finally living in Indiana. And I was talking to one of my coworkers, and we were discussing who our favorite sports teams were. And I said Detroit everything. And the guy was like, "Oh man," he's like, "You got Stafford as your quarterback." and I was like, "Bro," I was like,
"We got Stafford as my quarterback."
I was like, "You're a Bears fan." I was like, "Come on, you got Trubisky, so shut up." Like, I don't want to hear it. On top of that, your front office traded up to get that guy. I was like, he's basically baby Jay Cutler, so I don't want to hear it. I was like, I'll take Stafford any day of the week. I was like, he's a tough SOB. He doesn't make great decisions. It's okay. I'll take him over Trubisky, so zip it. And I threw that out there at him, and he shut down. He just stopped. Because, honestly, look at this division, right? Kirk Cousins hasn't been very good since he signed his new deal. I think you would take Matt Stafford over Kirk Cousins right now. You would take Stafford over Trubisky all day long. Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and you would probably take Aaron Rodgers over Matt Stafford. But if you dig a little bit deeper and you look at the durability, Matt Stafford's a little bit more durable than Aaron Rodgers. On top of that, lately, Matt Stafford has done a little bit more than Aaron Rodgers. So you could make the argument that Matt Stafford is the best quarterback in this division right now.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, it's not a tough argument to make. I just go with Stafford. I'm just a guy that's just like, all right, show me something. And I had a weird interaction with Stafford too. I read the piece on, I believe it was The Ringer. I think there was a feature on Matthew Stafford, really well done. And there was a note in there that said that, hey, he was into the show Billions. So I waited. He did a 4-minute hit with with WJR. So I'm like, oh no, because I knew right away pretty much my odds of getting a quick question in was not going to be good because he did 4 minutes with them. So I wait. I'm listening, and it's good. It's professional stuff, and he gives real professional answers. Nothing
all
real.
The time.
Yeah,
all the time.
Nothing real in depth and things like that. He'll joke around a little bit. So I wait. He's done, and I go, hey, I got one question about Billions. He looks at me, and he does the move where his eyes looking right at the door. He rolls his eyes a little bit and goes, I haven't caught up yet, and zoomed out the door. He didn't give me. I think I said billions, and he was like basically out the door. I was like, man, you could have at least thought about it. Or I think he was probably lying. But at the same time, I should have followed up and said I should have froze him and just said, no, that's not my question. I just wanted to know if you watch the show, there's two main characters. I just wanted to know what side he was on and things like that. But I had low expectations going in. But yeah, he blew me off too.
Yeah, he is cookie cutter for sure.
Yeah.
He never really gives you, if you're looking for something, he's never going to give it to you. And that's kind of frustrating. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no doubt.
And sometimes his answers they leave a little bit more to be desired.
Yeah, no, it's not something, you look at it and you go, okay, when he's available, we'll have a listen and things like that. But there's other guys that definitely will give you a little bit more. All right, cuz the talk of the entire National Football League involves Jalen Ramsey. He comes out this week, and he's like, I'm out. I don't want to be with the Jacksonville Jaguars anymore.
Did you happen to see any of that game where he blew up on the sideline and went after his head coach?
Yeah, Doug Marrone was not happy. And, the thing that was crazy was he sits down on the bench. He's getting talked to, after the initial foray into the discussion and the argument. Then he goes back. That's the crazy part. He's like, oh, no. And, of course, both of them, big egos and things like that. But he's demanding a trade. And Jacksonville, they said if the move is going to happen, it might happen by Friday. And they're going to be looking for a couple, maybe even they might get 2 first-round picks for him. 2 seems like a lot. Maybe you can get
especially at $30 million. That is a lot.
Yeah, and so you read in the papers, you do your research, and you realize that money probably is not going to go to Jalen Ramsey from the Lions because it would take away from a potential new deal to Darius Slay. So the money gets in the way a little bit in terms of viability, but I would love it to happen. I just think that the Lions are right there now. They have the defensive talent to take the step. I think the final piece is to go out there and get the high-end talent. Bring in the guy. And so you look at it, okay, outside of the salary cap, okay, it's going to be tough to negotiate that and things like that. But you did clear cap space in essence for a situation like this to happen. You got a guy that's disgruntled, top-end talent, arguably top 5 corner. He should be a Detroit Lion. I think that the Patriots, would do something like this. Why not the Lions? I think it would be great. Slay and Jalen Ramsey. Get out of here. It'd be great.
I like you said, the money gets in the way, and I don't think you can afford to have him. If you do, you've got to lose somebody else, and that interferes with getting Darius Slay a deal. The Lions are in love with Darius Slay. I agree with you. You have 2 shutdown cornerbacks. Oh my God, instantly this team looks so much better. But all that being said, you've been in the NFL locker rooms just a little bit now, and you'll start to see it a little bit more as the season progresses. They are alphas. Almost all of them are alphas. And then what happens is you have the big dogs. You have the guys who basically run the team and run the locker room. Jalen Ramsey is one of those guys in Jacksonville that does that. How would he integrate with this locker room? And sometimes all it takes is one guy to mess up and ruin a really nice locker room. Darius Slay is one of those guys in that Detroit locker room. You put those two together, this could be super combustible and could be a massive issue. And I think that's part of the reason why you don't do it. I would love it because, look, if it was Madden, dude, you got 2 lockdown corners. Let's go all day. But in the real world, you've got to deal with personalities, you've got to deal with egos, and then you've got to deal with money. It cuts down on what you can do with other positions. And I think we both agree this team is devoid of elite depth just about anywhere. You know what I'm saying? We beat up on the quarterback position in the quarterback room all the time. I think your offensive line showed a little bit of depth this week after Taylor Decker couldn't go. But all that being said, you still want more pieces there. Your defensive line is very deep. They're just not producing. Your linebacking core is very weak. You need to add some depth there. And then if you look at your wide receivers, I mean, you've got 2.5, I would say. I don't think you have a full 3 solid wide receivers. So you'd like a guy who you could maybe plug in every now and again who could do something. And at running back, you basically have one guy and then you got Ty Johnson. So, yeah. I mean, I just ran through this team offensively and defensively, and there's holes galore. So do you give one player that much money and take away from filling out the rest of this team with either multiple guys or other guys who could help bolster those positions? I don't think you do it.
Okay. See, if I was Darius Slay, you got money. I mean, how much money do you really need? I would be tweeting Jalen and be like, all right, we're getting this done. I would welcome it because the Lions need talent. It's about winning. Eventually speaking, you can only cash so many $1 million checks. At the end of the day, you want to have that hope. I feel like Jalen Ramsey could be that like Shanahan type acquire where if you brought him in, now you're going to be talked about by ESPN, all the national media. You're going to have that hype and buzz. And then you got Matt Patricia, the defensive guru, who coached guys that were high-end corners, knows how to run a defense. I know that you don't want to potentially limit the earnings of one of your players, but you take Darius Slay aside and you say, look, you win with this, you make this happen, you're a legend in town. We'll take care of you. You'll be in the organization forever. You'll be a coach. You'll be in the front office. You can run, you can sit next to Bob Quinn, at the parade. It's all about winning. Eventually speaking, the Lions have done everything in the National Football League but win. So at this point in time, it's time to increase the level of the highest. It's time to up the level of talent at the higher ends, and a guy like Jalen Ramsey would do it, but it's not going to happen. You saw Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's gone. He's now with Pittsburgh, and now you have Jalen Ramsey, who I think the rumors are KC, but it's going to be crazy to see where he ends up. I just wish the Lions would be in the mix, but you kind of realize they're not.
Yeah, I don't think the Lions are even considering this. I mean, as much talk as there is that's been going on about it, I don't think Bob Quinn's even interested in doing this. This is one of those things. Yeah, this is one of those things that fans get hyped about. You and I get hyped about. I mean, just thinking about it. When this news broke that he wants to be traded, I was like, oh man,
make it happen.
I was like, I said I was walking the dog and I looked at my phone when the notification came through, and I was like, for real? I was like, you pair him with Darius Slay?
Yeah, I asked a simple question. Do it. Yeah, I asked a simple question. SI loved it. They were like, yeah, that's a great question. I think everybody that gets in the mix to look at Jaguars cornerback Jalen Ramsey is going to be something that's going to be talked about. It should be done, but, Jalen is going to end up on a team, but probably not the Detroit Lions. So now we switch our attention to Sunday. You got to ride the momentum. The Eagles are hurting. You're going to go to Philadelphia, a place where you haven't had success a lot in the recent memory. Obviously, the Lions have had success at home against the Eagles, but there's an opportunity, to go to Philadelphia up against Jim Schwartz's defense, and you have the opportunity to really put the hurting on the Eagles. I think there's a strong chance they win the game.
I think so too. So just kind of looking at what the Eagles have done, right? So you have to realize Djax is out. He's got an abdominal strain. All right. So look at their defense, right? Because offensively, I think they're a little bit shorthanded. I don't think they have a great running game. Your next big wide receiver will be Nelson Aguilar and Zach Ertz. And Zach Ertz can be scary, but he's not scaring me this season. And Nelson Aguilar is second fiddle, maybe third fiddle on good days. So not too concerned with their offense. But look at their defense. Their defense has been stout against the run. So I don't know how good of a game Kerryon Johnson's going to have. I'm not really looking at the run game here. However, I think Matt Stafford, Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay, Danny Amendola, TJ Hawkinson, I think these guys are going to have a massive game. In the most recent games, the Eagles have allowed multiple 100-yard receivers. On top of that, they've given up 3 touchdowns both of their games so far, and they have given up multiple plays of 30-plus yards. So I think the Eagles are gettable. But the thing is, it's going to come down to Matt Stafford and what his receiving core can do. I think Kerryon Johnson has a big day if he's working out of the slot, or if he's if they're using the bubble screen and getting him the ball in space. Otherwise, you're going to go with your heavy guns on the outside. The guys that split out wide should have massive days. I think the Lions can win this game, and that's no Kool-Aid sipping, and that's no cornbread eating because they got a big win against the Chargers. No. Do a little bit of a deep dive here and look at what this team has done the last 2 weeks. It's not really been all that impressive. They're 1-1. They've given up a lot of yards through the air. Their run defense is crazy good. All right. I don't trust their offense. I think the Lions can shut these guys down and come away with a big W.
Yes, give me a 17-9 victory. No touchdowns for the Eagles. The Lions defense is going to ride the wave of momentum. Darius Slay super happy. I think that they're going to take the challenge, the defensive line, hearing the news all week that, hey, where you guys at? Trey Flowers, maybe, just maybe, you get that game where everything works. Trey Flowers, Daniel, Snacks, everything works perfectly. And maybe, around the National Football League, all the quarterbacks are getting hurt. Maybe the Lions even knock out the Eagles quarterback and call it a day early. They can pressure the quarterback, and something freaky can happen, and we can relax this game because you're going to play the Chiefs, and that can get silly real quick. So give me a 20-9, 17-9 victory. I like where your head's at. Let's just hope they perform well. If they go out there and they struggle, it's again, with the Lions, it's going to be about executing late and really limiting what the Eagles can do and stop the momentum, because they played pretty good against Atlanta and they came up short. So that was an interesting game too. So they're going to be hungry at home. They're not going to want to lose 2 games in a row. The Lions have to go out there with that killer mentality, and I can't wait to see it. Oh, I love talking football with you, cuz we're going to take our first time out. Stay tuned. Buckle up.
Wait. Who are your big 3?
My big 3, as always, my big 3 are going to be Trey Flowers, 2 on the defense, Trey Flowers, Darius Slay, and Kerryon Johnson, baby. It's time. You got to control the game. I think that maybe, just maybe, they're realizing, okay, we got something with Kerryon in this run game. That 30-yard plus touchdown that he had was awesome. He bobbled the ball, ran the ball, showed some speed. I think Kerryon Johnson can be somebody, if the offensive line gels, can get the ball and get some chunk plays. If he can average 4 to 5 yards, help that offense out. Oh my. Maybe nice. Maybe even as someone that could potentially help out too, Danny Amendola. I think that relationship is burgeoning, and that's a guy that's always poised to do some things. If he can be a safety valve as well, maybe look for him to get some yards. I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to see the Detroit Lions, and even if they do lose, 1-1 is not terribly bad, especially from what we all expected. But you never know. They might win this game and then come home and get destroyed by the Chiefs, or they might lose and defeat the Chiefs. You never know.
I think Matt Stafford's going to have a huge game. I think Kenny Golladay is going to have a massive game. And I think you're right. Darius Slay has to be able to lock down either Nelson Aguilar, who I think he'll have no problem doing it, or Zach Ertz. I could see him lining up on Zach Ertz, though, because I could see them moving Zach Ertz all around the field.
Yep, Zach Ertz was somebody the coaches targeted as somebody that can provide some problems. All right, stay with us. We're going to take a timeout, show love to the sponsors. Stay with us, buckle up. We're going to react to what we saw in college football. Stay tuned. The reason why we're able to keep the lights on, the microphones hot here in our Sterling Heights studios is because of great sponsors. And the sponsors of this week's podcast are the Motor City Pawnbrokers and the Flick Chat application. The Motor City Pawnbrokers are the one-stop pawn shop when you're in need of short-term cash or you're looking for quality brand name, new or pre-owned merchandise. They got 4 great locations all across Metro Detroit, in Roseville, Ferndale, Detroit, and Warren. If you're anywhere near the Motor City Pawnbrokers, stop in. It's not the same as it was in the past. Mark and the crew provide great customer service. Or if you want information, if you want to know how a pawn deal takes place, head on over to MotorCityPawnbrokers.com today. That's MotorCityPawnbrokers.com. 4 great locations, and Mark and the crew are always dedicated to serving you. They got a great reputation. Go into the stores. The stores are impeccable. Don't pay full price. Go shop and check out the Motor City Pawnbrokers. If you've agreed or disagreed with anything that we've said today, if you think that bringing in Jalen Ramsey is the stupidest move of all time, feel free. Let us know. Head on over to the Flick Chat application. How do you join Detroit Sports newest headquarters? You go to the App Store or the Google Play Store. You type in Flick Chat, and then you download the app. It takes literally 2 minutes, and then you look for the Detroit Sports headquarters. Or you enter in the plus sign. You find that little plus sign there, real easy. You enter in these 3 letters, DSP, all lowercase, and then you're in, just like that. And it's a great place where we go and debate, we have a good time, tell jokes, and you can listen to your favorite podcast as well. The Flick Group is a spot where you can have fun with your friends. It's real easy. It's a large group chat application that makes watching Detroit sports fun. Don't miss out. Join the Flick Group today. All right, cuz, buckle up. All right, so Saturday was date night. I had an opportunity. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to watch the Michigan State game. So I dedicated myself. I said, okay, you know what? It's going to be pretty much relatively a decent game. Not too entertaining. I kind of figured that, it wasn't going to be all that great. Okay, so I get to the bar, having a good time on the water, talking to the wife, and then I finally peek over. We're at the outside bar, and there's the game. And the Spartans are, battling it out with the Arizona State team. And I'm like, oh my God, this game's close. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. It was slow throughout. The offense was terrible. And wait for my reaction in just a few seconds here. I say, yes, the offense is definitely to blame for that disaster, but you can also pinpoint one play too. You had them down to a large 4th down play, 4th and long. Do you execute? No. And that play looked ridiculous. For a top defense, you let a freshman quarterback earn a 1st down. And the ridiculousness on the field goal was embarrassing. And the Michigan State Spartans end up losing to Arizona State. And you recognize and you say, wow, the offense has bit the Michigan State Spartans in the ass yet again. Yet again, the offense does not do the job. Yet again, in front of the home fans, they're subjected to watching garbage offense. It's not right. For Michigan State to lose to Arizona State 2 years in a row is embarrassing at the highest level. You and I were texting. I was half in the bag, and I'm like, oh, my God, what are we watching here? You're like, bro, what's going on? Everybody that watched it nationally, locally, is like, what's going on? You seen that video, cuz, of Mark D'Antonio after the game? Dude looked like he was out of it, didn't know where he was. He was like wobbling, and, he finally gets on one knee to pray with his team. He looked completely out of it, dejected. He looked lost. You recognize now, after the game, I was furious because eventually what we can now say is, and I can relate, you and I have hashed it out. You're like, dude, you're the most stubborn SOB on the planet. do this, change this. Why is everything always the same? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I hear what he's saying, but it's working, and da-da-da. Our situation's a little different in that we've had a lot of success, so I'm not trying to change it all. But, Mark D'Antonio, how can you be this stubborn? How can you legitimately be this stubborn? How can you look at that room, you're sitting there, and you walk in, it's Brad Salem. It's coaches that would never have opportunities anywhere else. It's not right for Michigan State to be that stubborn in 2019 to have this offense. It's embarrassing at the highest level. Mark D'Antonio is sinking the ship. It's not right that everybody knows that the offense is not with it. It's not it at all. It doesn't bring anything to the table. You have talent that's not being utilized properly at all. And for Mark D'Antonio to sit there and not acknowledge it, to be that stubborn, is going to be the downfall of him. It's done. It's over. Michigan State is now irrelevant. They're on the level of Central Michigan. Eastern Michigan might pass them by. I mean, they're getting wins in the Big Ten. And you look at Michigan State and you go, what's it going to take? What's it going to take for Mark D'Antonio to realize, hey, it's over. Your offense is trash. It's worse than trash. It does nothing. It's a hindrance to your team. Your offense hurts your team. And it's to the point where I think he's seriously doing this as a defiant measure to say, yeah, I can do it. You've lost to Arizona State. You're not relevant. It's 2019. You got to spread the ball out. Shotgun. Do some things. Throw the ball deep. Execute. Figure out that, okay, you know what? The big thing I think that Mark D'Antonio does that really pissed everybody off, that was at the bar and all across Sparty Nation, dude, you got these upperclassmen that aren't as talented as the guys that are young. You bring in young guys and they show spark, they show flair, and yet you're giving love to these upperclassmen who aren't good enough. Why? Okay, good, you're 21 years old. You've done the work in the program. But at the end of the day, it's about talent. D'Antonio and the offensive staff don't understand who the pieces are that fit on the field. It's a complete mess, top to bottom. Michigan State fans have jumped off the bandwagon. Most of the fans are like, thank you, Mark, but it's time to move on. It's done. What Mark D'Antonio has done with his stubbornness is to the height of ridiculousness on all levels that you can't look and go, okay, it's wrong. And you can't change it mid-season. We're stuck watching this the rest of the way. The Michigan State game might be 9-6, bro. It might be 9-6 with the final field goal deciding what's going to happen. Sparty fans don't deserve this. We deserve progress. And eventually speaking, give Mark D'Antonio credit for all the work he did bringing that program to the Rose Bowl. Great memories. But look, it's 2019 and it's sports. What have you done for me lately? And it's been jack shit. So I'm ready to move on from Mark D'Antonio. Bring me somebody that can go up to that whiteboard, spread the fucking football out, and score some fucking points.
Do you realize that Mark D'Antonio's coaching staff, for the most part, has remained intact since 2007? That's 12 years.
What the hell, bro?
That's 12 years of coaches not being wanted by other programs or going anyplace else. Brad Salem's been on this team either as a quarterbacks coach or a recruiting coordinator since 2010. That's 9 years. So you mean to tell me in 9 years you were finally able to work your way up to offensive coordinator, and this is the garbage you're putting out? This is the garbage. That defense looks so damn special. Yeah, they had a bad play, all right? But that defense has kept you in games for going on 2 seasons now. And this is how you get repaid with this turd of an offense? This offense is absolutely brutal. I felt bad for you. Like, you know how normally we'll kind of chide each other and we'll go back and forth? You know, Michigan almost blows the game. You're in my ears so hard and you're basically telling me how bad they suck. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And when Michigan State blows a game in spectacular fashion, I'm usually in your ear and in your face about it, being like, oh my God, how is this allowed to continue? I felt bad for you. I was like, dude. Like, we were going back and forth, and my text messages were basically just, dude,
what
with
the
like
hell?
9 periods after, because I was speechless. I couldn't believe that Mark D'Antonio, and I praise this guy regularly. I really do respect Mark D'Antonio. I think he's a great football coach. But I don't understand his stubbornness. I'm a stubborn SOB. You're a stubborn SOB. We're stubborn as hell, and that's why we fight, and that's why we argue, and that's why we break things. But geez Louise, man.
We're
the
calling
proof
him
is
stubborn.
in the pudding.
We're calling him stubborn. Like, what the fuck?
Right. the proof is in the pudding. Like you're the guys who you have calling your offense can't get it going. They don't know what they're doing. And if that's on Brian Lewerke, then that's on Brian Lewerke, all right? But I don't think it is. I think it's on these coaches. I think it's on this staff. This staff has put this team in positions to fail. And when your coaches start doing that, that's when you start losing jobs. And Mark Antonio has laid on the sword for just about every single one of these guys, year in and year out. And this right here, last year, with this coordination of just moving the deck chairs around on the Titanic, shows that maybe it's time for Marky D to move on.
Okay, now, look, remember, I had some drinks, okay? So I'm watching the Sparty drive late. I'm like, okay, you're moving the ball. Clock management should be good. It's a strength of Mark Antonio. He'll understand what to do. You finally get the ball with 11 seconds, and you don't take a shot in the end zone. I'm like, what are you doing? You have 11 seconds. Drop back, shotgun, 3 steps, boom, throw the ball.
Yep. At least one attempt.
One attempt. You have an opportunity to throw the ball. It takes 6 seconds, 7 at the most to take a chance. Fine. You're indecisive at that moment. What happened to Mark Antonio's balls? What happened to him? What happened to his quick-witted decision-making? What happened to his execution? Fine. You don't want to take the chance. You want to bring your kicker out. Fine. You don't get it off right the first time? What the hell's going on? You have 12 men on the field, and yeah, you could, bring up the fact that Arizona State leaped and that was not supposed to happen. But, do you really want Michigan State trying out another field goal kick? Please, he probably would have missed it. It's, to rely on that at that point in the game is completely embarrassing. And it's just unacceptable at the highest levels that game ended that way in a loss. And it really brings to attention the fact that Mark D'Antonio and that staff have basically decided this is the offense, take it or leave it. And unfortunately, the program now has stagnated. He has peaked. We started talking about this a year and a half ago. He has peaked, and that's just the way it is. And you're not relevant anymore. You're not going to win the big games. And people are now opening up the possibility of 3, 4, 5 losses. I don't see that. I see them rebounding versus Northwestern. Mark D'Antonio teams typically rebound after shitty losses. So is the game going to be pretty? No. Is it worth even watching? Probably not. But I do think that they're going to walk away with the victory at Northwestern, and they're probably going to play their best game.
Are you sure, though? Because
yes,
Northwestern has had Michigan State's number in the past. This is always a good game.
It's going to be a good game.
It's always a close game.
He's going to rally the troops.
The Fighting Fitzgeralds are a really good team, generally speaking.
But it's embarrassing, and I don't want to talk about them anymore. I have no hope. When you have this offense, they're irrelevant. At the end of the day, the next time we talk about Michigan State will be when they fire the entire garbage staff or if Mark D'Antonio retires. That's what they got to do. That staff is not worth putting out there anymore. And bottom line, you watch them in the fourth quarter to see how many points they scored, and when it's 6, hey, that's what everybody will laugh at, and that's just the way it's going to be. Period. It's not effective enough. It's not good enough. And when you don't put your players in the right position to win, it's done. It's a wrap. WRAP. It's a wrap for the Spartans. How are you feeling, cuz, about the Wolverines' chances at Wisconsin? Big game. It's a big road game. And somebody sat here and said, be careful about Wisconsin. Be careful about Army in Wisconsin. And somebody on the other line was like, what the hell are you talking about? And by and large, a lot of Michigan supporters that I'm polling, cuz, on Twitter, all over the Metro Detroit area at these local pubs, they're not confident that Michigan's going to roll up in there and do anything offensively either. They're saying the same thing. They're like, dude, you know what? And sidebar here. The funniest thing when you're at a bar watching sports is people will come up to you waiting, they're waiting for drinks when it's busy. And this nice elderly man comes up to me and he's like, oh, you're a Spartan supporter. Oh, you do sports? Okay, good. He's like, don't tell me about your shitty problems. I'm a Michigan supporter. And he's like, he's breaking down the Army game. He goes, let me tell you about our problems. He goes, and it's great because the candor in which he just said it. He goes, did you watch the Army game? I said, yeah. He goes, where was the fucking change there in that offense? And I said, you're right. He goes, I thought Gaz was going to come in here and throw the ball. He's like, that looked like the same old shit before. Michigan fans want to see different shit too. They don't want to see Michigan run the ball 50 times. He was like, where the fuck was the offense there? And he was very worried about what's going to happen this Saturday on the road, Wisconsin.
Yeah. Dude, I predicted last week that they would lose. I think at this point they will probably lose. I don't understand how this defense stops Jonathan Taylor. I just don't see it. Jonathan Taylor is an animal. He's a beast. He is the running back that Michigan fans lust over. And he's going to be on the other side of the ball. And he's going to run a train on your ass. And it's just the way it's going to be. And honestly, unless something happened in this bye week and Shea Patterson figured out how to hang on to the ball and figured out how to make better decisions when he's doing the repass option, so he doesn't bobble the ball or fumble the ball when they get to the mesh point, I don't understand how this offense is going to put points up. I mean, Wisconsin, the one thing you can usually say about Wisconsin is they have a pretty good defense. Now, I know that they haven't really played anybody, but they haven't given up any points yet this year. Like,
whoa.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they've given up zero points. And, I mean, again, they haven't really played anybody this year, but at the same point, I don't know what to tell you. And they're averaging 55, you know? I mean, they beat the living piss out of Central, and they beat up on USF. Now, if you're a Michigan fan, you're like, oh, this is going to be great. We got a bye week. We're just going to roll into Wesky, and we're just going to beat up Wisconsin. No. They had a bye week too. So they had just as much time to game plan for you as you had to game plan for them. I don't know how Michigan gets a win here, because what I've seen out of my maize and blue, they look like a dumpster fire right now. And a dumpster fire might be a little bit strong, might be a little bit of an overreaction, but they haven't looked good. This hasn't been the team that I touted. This hasn't been the team that I told you before the season started they were going to be special. Their quarterback looks all out of sorts. Their offensive line is sometimes questionable. I expect that to get stronger as the season goes on. But you know what? This is going to be week 4. This is your third game. I don't think you've had enough time to get it stronger, especially against a very good Wisconsin defense. Your defense that everybody talked about, I know you had to reload, but everybody's like, oh, it's going to be so much faster. It's going to be so much quicker. Cool. Where's the pressure on the quarterbacks? Where are these sacks coming from? Because nobody is finishing. You might kind of get there, but nobody is doing enough to either knock a guy down or get the ball out of his hands or force a turnover or create some kind of impactful play that will flip the field and get this offense in a spot where they can score, much less the defense taking it to the house. So where are we at here? I mean, let's have a real conversation, Michigan fans. Let's have a very real conversation. If you don't like what I'm saying, go ahead, tweet me. Adam R. STROZ. Let's talk about it. Because I want to borrow your maize and blue glasses. I do. Because I want to see the same crap that you're seeing. Because what I'm seeing right now is crap. I've not seen enough. This team does not look good enough.
Yeah, here's a number, cuz 1-4 their last 5 trips to Madison. 1-4. And the other
you don't win there.
Yeah, you don't win there. And the other note that's really the talk, and like the guy that I was talking to at the bar said, it doesn't look like Josh Gaddis has really modified the offense significantly. And like we said, and if you paid attention to any of the Doc and Jock previews regarding Michigan, you just don't go from Michigan offense, run the ball, controlled offense, to just run and gun. It doesn't work like that. But many people have observed and are kind of saying, you know, how many play calls are Jim Harbaugh making? What's his involvement? What's his involvement in that offense? And you guys got to recognize that in an offensive meeting, Jim Harbaugh's there, and he has free reign to make suggestions to Josh Gaddis. And he's sitting there, and Gaddis is probably realizing, okay, Harbaugh has a lot of experience. He's going to err on making his boss happy. So there's going to be some times where Harbaugh has some influence. But I just say that we're going to chalk up the inconsistency to the fact that Gaddis is new. You don't just roll up to Michigan and change the offense and it rolls and executes like butter. It's just not going to happen. It's going to take time. And it'll be really interesting to see how Michigan's offense attacks Wisconsin's defense. If you're starting to see 3 and outs early on, you're going to see some grumpy ass Wolverines.
I want to give you a quick stat. Wisconsin's defense is ranked number 1 right now.
Number 1.
So I want to see how this offense goes up against this defense because this offense has struggled a lot.
Yeah, so Michigan really is an underdog. So would you be really that mad if it was a close game? I mean, in a loss, okay? Now, the chances of them winning are slim, but they have a chance. If Shea Patterson steps it up, if that offense gets going, if you ride that defense, you make some turnovers, you have an opportunity in any game. But if they do lose, let's say, okay, Wisconsin handles their business, their defense is just lights out. What do you want to see that's just not going to make you go over the edge?
Dude, if Michigan loses, I'm going to lose my mind.
No matter what, in any scenario.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm going to be pissed. So, if they lose, next week's podcast will be entertaining for Michigan State fans. If you're a Michigan fan who feels the same way I feel, it's going to be a very entertaining podcast because I'm just going to go freaking bonkers. So I'm going to be pissed because you made changes during the offseason that was supposed to improve this team. And I'm going to be honest with you, I really haven't seen any improvements on either side of the ball, much less special teams. So this team does not look like it took any steps forward. Actually, it looks like it took about 2 steps backwards. So, no, if they lose this game, I'm going to be fired up. And this will be a great podcast. So tune in next Thursday because I'm going to be pissed. It's just the way it's going to be.
Okay.
Okay. I'm telling you, man. Look, I'm telling you. I came out and I said I didn't believe in Wisconsin. I didn't believe in them. I didn't trust them. I said this Michigan team was going to go to the playoffs. I said this Michigan team is going to be special. This was going to be the year. Me and Putty, you should see me and Putty's text conversation. It's basically one Michigan fan jerking another Michigan fan off with freaking maize and blue butter. It's just like all over our cock meat sandwiches. And we're just going to town on each other. Like, it's going to be different this year. It's going to be great. Like, I sound like such a loser. And then 2 games in, it's like, what the hell is this? It's a lot of the same shit, and it's a little bit worse. It's horrible, man. It's not good. They lose, I'm going to be pissed. End of story. What's the final score? Wisconsin, I'm going to say 42, Michigan 24.
Oh, epic loss, huh?
Yeah, blowout. I don't trust the defense, man. Jonathan Taylor's a savage. You need to go. If you guys don't know, this dude's about to set a record against Michigan. He is an absolute beast. Absolute beast. You remember how good Saquon Barkley was? What was it? 2 years ago? Maybe 3 years ago? 3 years ago. 3 years ago, right? Yeah, 3 years ago. When Michigan rolled into Penn State and that first play from scrimmage, Saquon took it to the house. I expect something like that from Jonathan Taylor. I just do. He's an animal. The dude's a monster. His thighs are like as big as my torso. I want to do a bodybuilding competition next year. I need to get on this guy's schedule for sure.
You're thinking it's a bad loss.
Yeah, it's going to be brutal.
I actually got a rooting for that. That'd be a fun podcast. Back-to-back weeks of us screaming.
Hey, they win, man. We're coming on. Celebrate good times, come on.
National title, natty talk, baby.
Yeah, natty, baby.
Natty.
They win, natty.
They win, bring the natty to Ann Arbor.
Oh, that's what a delusional fan I am. What a loser.
That's the best part of sports, baby.
Everybody out there listening is got to be like, this guy, what's wrong with him?
Yeah. Great podcast. I had fun, man. It was good stuff.
This was a good one.
Follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you agree or disagree with anything, you can leave a voicemail anytime you want. We'll play it. 248-579-8686. Thank you guys for all your support. You took us to the heights of sports that we never really would have thought. Great sponsors are calling every week. They're emailing. They want to be part of what we're doing. Adam and I, we could be in different states, different countries, for Christ's sake. We're still going to light it up better than anyone in the podcast medium. We have a good time with it. Thank you so much for finding us every Thursday. Fire up the interwebs. Look for Doc and Jock. You won't be disappointed, I promise.
Hey, you want some perspective real quick on Michigan's offense?
Yeah, here we go.
And how good it is? So Michigan State's offense, their total offense, ranked 57th in the country. That's not very good. Michigan ranked a robust 79.
Woo!
So Michigan State's offense is technically better. What? Oh, it's like Bizarro World. Oh, if you're a Michigan fan, you got to hate your life. Just punch yourself in the dick. It'll be better, I promise.
And with that, let's turn out the lights. The party's over. Talk soon.
See you, cuz.
It's not over yet, so you can ask me that one next week.
Go Blue, bitch.
This was locker room talk. Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me.